My name's Sammy DeStefano with the Probate Division. I'm here with Wayne Marsh out in Sun City, Arizona. Thanks again for having us.
Well, welcome.
And how long have you been practicing this area of law?
Oh, quite a while, as you can tell by looking at me. It's been a few years. It's been over 30 years. Most of the time right here in Sun City, but covering every county in the state with probate.
Wow. Okay. The reason we do these videos is more for you guys, right? Is we oftentimes we hear what you're going through, and we have an attorney to refer, and this gives you a sense of who you're going to be speaking with. So, just jumping into it, I'm curious. What have you seen is the reason why people will choose to work with you over another attorney?
Well, I think I treat people with respect and dignity. I listen to them, what they want to do, and I'm very experienced in the area. I know what to do, and I work with them all the way, and it's full communication. I do a lot more than other attorneys are doing. Rather than just the court work on a probate, I do all the administration with them. I'll help them pay the bills. I'll negotiate with the creditors. I'll do things that a lot of attorneys really just don't want to do. They get the appointment for the personal representative and they say, okay, you're on your own. Call me if you need something. But we sit down, we do it all from the beginning to the end.
And you said most attorneys don't do that. Who does that? Will that fall on their plate?
Who does it? Yes, it's the individual, the family
Okay.
member. If they're in charge, they're there to do it.
Okay. Yeah, and that's quite a bit. With the probate process out here in Arizona, anyways, it could be Sun City or wherever you've practiced. What is the longest you're seeing that you've personally handled? Like how long the process will take?
The process doesn't take long. That's the court work, doesn't. After that, it's the administration. For instance, if there's a house to be sold, if the market's bad and people aren't buying things, that drags it out a little bit.
Sure.
But it's just winding things up. We don't have court interference and we can just move right ahead.
Perfect. So, to set their expectations from day one, the consultation call.
Yeah, from day one, the consultation call, if somebody comes in and we talk and they agree to have me represent them and handle this for them, when I get all the information from them, it's less than 2 weeks. And
Wow.
I've been through the court and they've been appointed.
Okay, good. And that's we call them the PR, you're gonna hear that a lot, that's the personal representative. Is that the only person in the estate that you work with?
No, well, that's who hired me.
Okay.
That's who I do the work for. As far as the beneficiaries go, I really represent the personal representative.
Okay.
Not the beneficiaries. And the personal representative may be one of the beneficiaries, but I can't represent them in their individual capacity.
Sure. And because they hired you, are you allowed to speak with other people? If the other heirs call you directly, does it have to go through the personal representative?
No, the other heirs do call me a lot, and I'll tell them how things are going along and what's happening.
Perfect.
And answer their technical questions. And I keep that away from the actual personal representative so that they're not bothered with that.
Right. Well, and I know, I want to say, I know why we've partnered with Wayne. I know why I like working with him, but for everyone else, it seems like these days, a lot of times you're overpromised, right? This is, you do more than other attorneys do. And how do you do all of this? I mean, what does the team
Well, I have a
look like?
staff.
Okay,
I have a staff
Good.
that helps me here in the office. Not only that, the outsiders that I work with, for instance, if the house has to be sold, I want to work with a realtor that'll do a lot of the work for me without charging. So I'm not charging the clients. For instance, keys, the locks need to be changed. They'll do that. A sprinkler breaks, I call up the realtor. They'll get somebody out there to fix it and do all that stuff, and I don't have to. And the client's not billed for it either.
Okay, that's good. And so the client's going to be working with a realtor, and that's where we come in with your check-in calls. Are they directly working with you most of the time, or with someone on your staff?
Usually me.
Okay.
And I, give stuff to my staff for my staff to do.
So
they're going to talk to me.
Okay, perfect. So you're the face.
Mm-hmm.
And then just to back up, because we're assuming that they know what a probate is. So most of my clients say, someone passed away and I was told I'm not allowed to sell the house, and that's why I need to find an attorney. right? Or visit the house and take keepsakes from
Sure.
it, and it's in this probate process. What is a probate to
Sure.
you in layman's terms?
Sure. Well, when somebody dies, they have certain assets that are in their name. They have a house, the title's in their name. They may have a car, the title's in their name.
Mhm.
Bank accounts, the title's in their name. So when somebody dies, those things have to be taken care of. They have to be either sold, the assets have to be managed, debts have to be paid, and money gets distributed to the beneficiaries. But how can that happen if everything's in someone's name? For instance, I can't sign the title to your house
Right.
or get into your bank account.
Right.
And so when somebody dies, this probate process, the court appoints someone to stand into the shoes of the decedent, to do exactly what the decedent could do when they were alive.
All right.
You may have I've run across this before, and this is how I've gotten a probate from a title companies. For instance, somebody dies, and the child sells the house, they accept an offer, it goes into escrow, they prepare all the papers to be signed by the deceased. They don't even know the person died.
Sure.
The son goes in there to sign the papers, and they say, wait a minute, you're not him, where's him? Who's that? It's my father. Well, go get him. I can't, he's dead.
Right.
Well, you can't sign those papers.
Right.
He says, yes, I can. Here's the will. It says I'm named as the executor.
Mm.
Well, no. The decedent named his son, nominated his son, said, I want him to be the executor, but the court is the one that appoints him as the executor. So the court reviews the will to make sure it's valid, that's the proper person, and they'll appoint that person. Once that person gets appointed, we have that court paper with the seal on it. He takes that to the title company, so the title company get the papers ready for him to sign.
Okay. So playing devil's advocate, if his father nominated him, and all that has to be done is the court handles it, why wouldn't a person try to do it themselves? What are the benefits or maybe the shortfalls?
To do it themselves?
Yeah.
Oh, they
Why
can
do we need you?
try. And, in Arizona, you can practice law on yourself.
Right.
You can try doing it yourself. If it works, fine, you go right ahead. But then again, to administer these states, there's a lot that needs to be done. You're now a fiduciary, and you have a fiduciary responsibility. Do you know what all those are? It's really technical. It's laid out in the law. So you have to be careful. You can get yourself in trouble by not doing things correctly. And that's the big thing. That's where a lot of litigation takes place, where the personal representative is not doing it the way they're supposed to do it. They're not informing the people, or they've commingled assets, or they're taking forever, and they can be removed as a personal representative and surcharged, they call that.
Wow. Well, that's why I let you handle them. I think I know the process, but I'm not going to try it myself. All right. Well, I appreciate it. The one thing that has come up for me is sometimes the family didn't own very valuable things. Maybe it was a single wide, manufactured home out in the desert and a 20-year-old car. So when it's just not worth handling because there's not enough assets, how have your clients handled that in the past, or have you ever run into that?
Yeah. And Arizona provides for that. They have what they call small estate affidavits. If you have, let's say, personal property, which includes money, a value less than $75,000, you don't have to go to court for probate. It's an affidavit that we can prepare, and they can collect it that way. If it's real estate, and that would include a mobile home if it's attached to the ground, and they own it. Then they own the ground with it. It's been legally attached, and then it's $100,000 above $100,000.
Okay.
I'm sorry. If it's 100,000 or less, we can use an affidavit.
Oh, I see.
On real property.
And
So that
speeds
we
things
do have to do that probate now.
Okay. And then the last thing I wanted to make sure to cover is a lot of times the personal representative or the heirs don't know what their mom or dad or cousin or uncle owed. And that's part of what I understand. Part of what you do is you wrangle up all of the debts and post notice to creditors. If the debt exceeds what the estate's worth, do they still have to go through the probate?
No. If the estate debts are more than what the assets are, there may not have to be a probate. There might be a few assets, and what happens is, let's say there's a surviving spouse. A surviving spouse is allowed certain, what we call statutory allowances. That before debtors get paid, the surviving spouse is allowed to take a certain amount. And so it'd be worth to do the probate for that purpose. You send out notice to the creditors, surviving spouse gets his or her share, and then the rest of the debts are pro rata paid if there are any other, assets that are left. And let's take the situation, somebody dies and they just had debts and really no property.
Right.
Then, do a probate. Let the creditors, do what they want to do, but there's nothing to go after, so there wouldn't be a probate.
Okay. When let's say there's no debts, but there's a lot of assets.
Mm-hmm.
If the heirs never hear that their parents passed away,
Mm-hmm.
and nobody opens a probate, what happens to the house? To the cars?
That happens. That happens sometimes. It
Yeah.
really does.
Yeah.
What happens eventually, someone's gonna try to get that property to sell it or do something with it, and we trace back the title and have to do it. I have one now. Listen to this. Young man came in, he wants to have title to his great-grandfather's property put into his name.
Mhm.
This was a deed from 1946. The great-grandfather and the great-grandfather's wife, they owned the property.
Okay.
They died, nobody did anything with it, His son, the grandfather of the one, just lived in the house. No one did anything because no one was trying to sell the house. They paid the property taxes.
Okay.
There wasn't any mortgage, and the title is still back in the name of the great-grandparents. So he wants to have it switched, and his father is still alive who says it's okay, put it in your name. So now we have to trace, and nobody had a will. We have to trace relatives. How many children did the great-grandfather have? How many of those are deceased? The deceased one, did they have children? How many of them there? And we have to do this whole family tree and trace it back. And then I'm going to take it to the title company to see if they would accept that.
Right.
It's tough. That's what happens.
The last part of this is I find like you're, to be frank, you're obviously competent. It seems like you're very good at what you do. Why do you enjoy doing this, or is this just a job?
I do. I feel like helping people, and it's challenging too when you run into circumstances like that. Yeah. And starting off, I did a few things like criminal law and divorce law, and to me that's not fun. You're dealing with controversies and people mad at each other, and it's not positive. So I like estate planning. I like probate because I feel like I'm helping people. Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing. And let's wrap up with the estate planning. Is how do we avoid ever going through a probate?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, when we do estate planning, there's different ways to avoid probate. Now, probate's just part of the process. It's one step. The biggest step is administering the estate. You still have that, whether you've avoided the probate or not. But it's good to avoid that first step. Why do it? There's beneficiary designations. That avoids probate. Also, a trust avoids probate. There are beneficiary deeds, which means it passes right on that person that you've named on the deed. If you have an IRA, usually name a beneficiary right with the custodian of the IRA. So it's who you name as the beneficiaries that on the document, if that's allowed to do. If you have a joint account, that would work too. The problem with that is somewhat restricted. If you do a trust, which we like to do, and if the assets are enough and there's enough beneficiaries, what we do, we put things in a trust because you have more flexibility. It's not a beneficiary to one person and then another person gets something else. I had a woman, she had 5 CDs at different banks. She put one child's name on, each one of 3, then 2 others were other people. Well, then when she got older, she needed care. She had to spend some of that money. Which one does she take? Which CD does she spend it from? She spends it from one, then that child doesn't get an equal share. It's been diminished. So you lose that flexibility when you do that.
Okay. Perfect. Well, is there anything that you'd like to share that people should know before working?
Well, I think it's important for people to see an attorney, whether it's a probate or estate plan, because I can think of things that you hadn't even thought of before. you know, and prevent those things from happening if they're bad.
You have the war stories to prove it. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Well, thanks for your time.
Well,
Wayne.
thank you.
Thank you for working with us. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.